The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Daly. Here. Senator Dignate. Senator Dondera-Loop. Senator Flores. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Senator Hansen. Senator Harris. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Scheibel. Senator Seifers-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Senator Stone. Senator Titus.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please mark Senator Cannizzaro absent excused.
Thank you. Let the record reflect there are 20 senators present. Please rise for the prayer by Pastor Chase Ward of the Mountain Vista Baptist Church here in Carson City, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord, your word says, be subject to the for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be the emperor as supreme, to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. Lord, today we ask for wisdom, ask for guidance, for discussion and decisions that are for the good of the people and the betterment of our state. May your hand direct and bring about your will. Thank you for these men and women. Thank you that they seek to do good through law for these people. I ask for wisdom that they may address today's agenda with direct fervor, that you would lead them in truth and in the well-being of our state. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of Business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make the necessary corrections and additions. Order of Business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am very fortunate to have with me two guests today from Douglas County. Harriet Cummings and her son Christopher Cummings Rowe. Please, I want to let the body know today I'm going to be presenting a proclamation to Christopher Cummings Rowe, who has accomplished a lot of great things in his young life. I've had the opportunity to meet Christopher and to work with him through the years. He sat on the floor with me over in the assembly, and it was really great learning experience for him and get to get a young person's perspective on a lot of the legislation. And I'm presenting him with a proclamation, and I'm just going to go over some of his accomplishments. Very recently, Christopher, he's grown up in Boy Scouts. He started out in Scouts BSA with Troop 411, later Troop 33. He advanced through all the ranks, earning 31 merit badges, including the 12 required for the Eagle Scout rank, growing in responsibilities as Den Chief, Patrol Leader, Assistant Senior Patrol Leader, and finally Senior Patrol Leader. Christopher was able actually to earn the Eagle Scout, which is very prestigious. Only 4% of kids in scouting go on to earn the Eagle Scout. He worked on a project during the pandemic. However, undeterred by delays from the coronavirus or wildfires, Christopher worked on improving the Douglas County Animal Services Shelter for his Eagle Scout project, passed his board of review, and received formal acknowledgement at his Court of Honor. Christopher is currently a student at University of Nevada, Reno. He's studying mechanical engineering. He's very involved in student government, and he's just a young man I'm very proud of, and I think that making great accomplishments to our state and will continue to. And Christopher and Harriet, if you could please stand. I'd like to present you with both the framed copy of this proclamation that honors and celebrates all your great accomplishments. And I wonder if the chamber might make him feel welcome.
Senator Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today are staff members from Whitney Elementary School in SD5 in Las Vegas. They are Principal Melissa Ream and her Assistant Principal Julie Causey. Born in a small town in Ohio, Melissa had big dreams to teach and lead in a large urban district, which brought her to CCSD in 2010. Miss Ream was first a science teacher at Cram Middle School and Dean of Students and Assistant Principal at Fremont Middle School, and now serves as principal of Whitney Elementary School. Earlier this month, Miss Ream was awarded and named CCSD Principal of the Year at the first annual Starlight Awards. That is because in the past 3 years, Whitney Elementary School has gone from one of the lowest performing schools in the state to one of the highest growing schools in Clark County School District. Whitney has grown by over 30 points on the Nevada School Performance Framework. And in the recent spring 2023 MAP benchmark, Whitney ranked 11th in the median growth percentile for all CCSD schools. And if you're familiar with growth, it's where the student comes in and then they see how much they've grown them over the year that they've had them. Melissa is a tireless advocate for students and their achievement. She is here with her husband, who serves as assistant principal at Southwest CTA, and they have 2 young children at home. Also with me is Julie Causey. Julie has spent the last 26 years working in education in Las Vegas, 23 of those years at Whitney Elementary School. 23 years. And so Whitney Elementary School, if you know where it's at, it's off of Boulder Highway in an area of much need. And so to be there that long, thank you so much. Ms. Causey has served Whitney as a teacher, instructional strategist, and now assistant principal. So she's been there for a good long time and been able to share the growth and love with that community. She has a caring heart and finds great fulfillment in serving underprivileged children. Ms. Causey has an outstanding rapport with the students and families at Whitney and is a trusted, fair, and consistent leader in the community. She is an expert in early literacy, writing, and teaching students to read, helping Whitney students excel forward faster than ever. Ms. Causey is married to Justin, who is a retired CCSD support staff member. They've been together for 30 years and have 2 twin daughters that are now grown. Please join me in welcoming these heroes. And I say this and like to highlight them on the floor because this is what it looks like to take an underprivileged community and to grow it in a traditional school district. And so you're definitely the shining lights in Henderson and Las Vegas. Thank you.
Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make everyone aware that Roy Gom Elementary School is here. It's in my district. They are 5th graders. There's 2 classes, so if you see them roaming the halls, I don't think we have any above us. But Roy Gom is an outstanding public school that is a neighborhood school. I think they only have about 300 kids. And I'm really excited that they could join us today so they could learn more about the process and what we do here. So if you see them, please welcome them. Thank you.
Any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, we will take a quick recess to allow our guests to exit the floor. The Senate is back in order. Order of Business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which are referred Assembly Bills numbers 22, 415, 432, and 442, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Pat Spearman, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Education, to which was referred Assembly Bill number 74, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Roberta Lang, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Finance, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 501, 503, and 504, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Marilyn Dondera-Loop, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Assembly Bill number 55, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. End of reports.
Order of Business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, May 22nd, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Senate Bills numbers 4, 8, 13, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 87, 117, 119, 131, 169, 210, 214, and 437. Signed, Carol Ayala Sala, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. Assembly Chamber, Carson City, May 23rd, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed as amended Assembly Bills numbers 465 and 514. Signed, Carol Ayala Sala, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. Assembly Chamber, Carson City, May 22nd, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly amended and on this day passed as amended Senate Bill number 32, Amendment number 537, and respectfully request your honorable body to concur in this amendment. Signed, Carol Ayala Sala, Assistant Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of Business 8, waivers and exemptions.
Notice of exemption, May 23rd, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Assembly Bills numbers 286 and 442. Signed, Wayne Thorley, Fiscal Analysis Division. End of notices.
Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Concurrent Resolution number 5, Assembly Joint Resolutions number 1, 5, 8, and 1 of the 81st session, and Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 5 be taken from their positions on the resolution file and placed on the resolution file for the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Dondera-Loop.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to move Assembly Bill 286 and re-refer it to Finance.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills number 367 and Assembly Bills numbers 11, 13, 20, 23, 32, 33, 35, 44, 53, 54, 60, 91, 97, 107, 120, 124, 127, 132, 144, 159, 163, 169, 175, 177, 183, 202, 207, 241, 256, 267, 275, 284, 291, 309, 316, 334, 339, 342, 343, 351, 356, 391, 394, 398, 410, 414, 423, 424, 455, 456, and 464 be taken from their positions on the general file and placed on the general file for the next legislative day.
Senator Lang.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to amend my motion for 350, Assembly Bill 350 instead of 351. Thank you.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That concludes Order of Business 9.
Okay, order of business 10, introduction, first reading, and reference.
Assembly Bill 465, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager and Gray, revises provisions governing the state militia. End of bill.
Senator Lang.
Sorry. Mr. President, I move that Assembly Bill 465 be referred to the Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Lang has referred AB 465 to the Committee on Government Affairs. If there are no objections, so ordered.
Assembly Bill 514, introduced by Assemblyman O'Neill and Yeager, revises provisions governing public buildings. End of bill.
Senator Lang.
Mr. President, I move that we refer Assembly Bill 514 to the Committee on Government Affairs.
Senator Lang has referred AB 514 to the Committee on Government Affairs. If there are no objections, so ordered.
That concludes order of business 10.
Order of business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 244, introduced by Senators Spazina, et cetera, and Assemblywoman Gallant, et cetera, makes an appropriation to the other state education programs account for the creation and maintenance of school gardens. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 4, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Spazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 244, as amended, provides general fund appropriations of $1.5 million in both fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025 to the Nevada Department of Education's Other State Education Program account for allocation to nonprofit organizations to provide programs for the creation and maintenance of school gardens for public schools. Additionally, the bill outlines the parameters to be met in order for a nonprofit organization to receive an allocation of money to provide a program for a school garden. The bill further requires a nonprofit organization that receives funding to prepare a report to be transmitted to the Interim Finance Committee that details each expenditure made from the money received on or before October 1, 2024 for fiscal year 24 and on or before October 1, 2025 for fiscal year 2025. The bill is effective July 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you. I rise in support of Senate Bill 244, and I want to thank its sponsor. There's a number of school garden programs throughout the state, and the bill was amended to include pre-K and also extend it to 6th through 12th graders. So I want to thank the sponsor for that.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. SB 244 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 282, introduced by Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 551, proposed by the Senate Committee on Finance.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Wynn.
Amendment 551 amends the amount of time to expend carryover dollars from 18 months to 24 months.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Senate Bill 282. Are there any other amendments?
There are no other amendments.
Okay. So SB 282 is ready for final action.
Senate Bill 282, introduced by Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Plainly, Senate Bill 282 ensures that schools hire licensed teachers in good standings over substitutes. It also further empowers parents on school organizational teams and also ensures that the money that is allocated to schools by this legislative body actually follows those same students. Specifically, it clarifies that the hiring of staff by a principal of a local school precinct must conform to applicable collective bargaining agreements. It requires certain approval from an organizational team of a local school precinct to approve a plan of operation for the school precinct. It also includes principals of local school precincts as voting members on those organizational teams, and it revises the procedure for the selection of a candidate to fill the vacancy of a position of a school principal, and requires certain monies carry forward at the end of the school year by a local precinct. And again, with that amendment, it changes it from originally as introduced to 12 months to 24 months. It requires a local precinct that carries forward a balance of not more than 5% of actual expenditures at the end of the school year to use that money for certain purposes, and requires a local school precinct that fails to spend that money in excess of 5% of its actual expenditures during the immediately preceding school year, less that amount within 24 months at the end of the school year, and that any excess would be transferred to the education stabilization account. Senate Bill 282 as amended becomes effective upon passage and approval for the purposes of adopting regulations and performing preparatory administrative tasks on July 1st, 2024 for all other purposes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 17, the nays are 3. SB 282 as amended has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 76, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, revises provisions governing civil actions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3 of this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 76 increases the maximum amount of costs that a court may award to a prevailing party for the reasonable fees of expert witnesses from $1,500 for each expert witness to not more than $15,000 for each expert witness. The bill is effective on July 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 18, the noes are 2. AB 76 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 98, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn, revises provisions governing economic development. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 11, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 98 makes various changes to the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, including changing the name of the board of the Governor's Workforce Development Board, expanding the representation of the board to include members of local workforce development boards and other businesses representatives from industry sectors, and requiring the board to collaborate with local workforce development boards and regional development authorities on various economic and workforce development activities. The bill additionally requires each regional industry and sector partnership working with a local workforce development board to submit certain reports to the Governor's Workforce Development Board. This act becomes effective upon passage and approval.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 98 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 100, introduced by Assemblywoman Brown May, provides for certain assessments relating to caregivers. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3 of this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Assembly Bill 100 requires the Department of Health and Human Services during the 23-24 interim to 1. Develop evidence-based and culturally sensitive assessments to be administered by the department to family caregivers of individuals with disabilities or health conditions, implement a pilot program to administer these assessments to family caregivers, recruit certain persons and entities who directly and indirectly receive funding from the department to voluntarily participate in the pilot program, and annually report on the progress and results of the pilot program with certain entities that provide or oversee services for persons with disabilities in certain legislative interim committees.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 100 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 101, introduced by Assemblywoman Gonzalez, revises provisions relating to informants. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 8, end of Section 8, end of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you. Assembly Bill 101 requires each office of a prosecuting attorney to maintain complete and systemic records of cases prosecuted by the office in which testimony is provided by an informant pursuant to a cooperation agreement. Such records are confidential and not considered public books or records. If a prosecuting attorney intends to use testimony provided by an informant at trial, the prosecuting attorney is required to disclose certain information or material to the defendant as soon as practicable before trial, but not later than 30 days before trial, unless the court revises the deadline. In addition, if a court finds that making the disclosures may result in substantial bodily harm to the informant, the court may order the disclosure only to be made to the attorney for the defendant and not to the defendant or any other party. Lastly, the court is required to instruct the jury to consider certain information in assessing the credibility of that informant.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 101 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 110, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, makes revisions governing the dispensing and delivery of certain dialysate drugs and devices used to perform dialysis. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Pazina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 110 authorizes a manufacturer or wholesaler to dispense dialysate drugs and deliver devices necessary to administer dialysis at residents after satisfying certain requirements to a patient with irreversible renal disease or his or her designee, healthcare provider, or hospital or facility for the treatment of irreversible renal disease. A prescription provided to a manufacturer or a wholesaler for such purposes must comply with requirements concerning format, contents, and record keeping that apply to prescriptions generally. In addition, a manufacturer or wholesaler may use a third-party logistics provider to deliver the dialysate drug or device necessary to administer dialysis at home. A manufacturer or wholesaler that dispenses dialysate drugs must maintain certain records relating to dangerous drugs in the same manner as a pharmacy, hospital, or practitioner that furnishes dangerous drugs. And this bill is effective October 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 110 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 116, introduced by Assemblywoman Brown May, etc., requires the provision of information and referrals concerning Down syndrome under certain circumstances. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. End of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you. Assembly Bill 116 requires healthcare providers to provide information concerning Down syndrome and referrals for related support services to 1, the parent or guardian of a child with Down syndrome, or 2, a person who is pregnant and has received test results indicating that the fetus has Down syndrome if the person wishes to receive such information. The Department of Health and Human Services must maintain a website listing support services available in different areas of the state for people with Down syndrome and parents or guardians of such persons.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. AB 116 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 118, introduced by Assemblyman Watts and Senator Duniante, revises provisions relating to the Nevada system of higher education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 118 reduces the number of members on the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada from 13 to 9 and revises the members' terms from 6 to 4-year periods and outlines other provisions concerning election districts, election dates, and terms.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 118. As was just mentioned, it reduces the number of regions from 13 to 9 to cover the entire state, which we believe lessens the representation people have. There's also a change going from 6 years to a 4-year term, and there's no issues with a shorter term because those are extensive terms just like judges, but reducing the number is an issue. Thank you.
Are there any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13, the noes are 7. AB 118 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 122, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager and Hafen, revises provisions relating to tobacco. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 122 in its first reprint provides an exception to the current law relating to age verification for tobacco sales for persons selling, distributing, or offering to sell cigarettes, cigarette paper, or other tobacco products of face-to-face transactions that occur in an area within a casino where loitering by persons who are under 21 of age is already prohibited.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 122 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 126, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn and Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing business entities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 32, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm excited to talk about this winning bill. It's really a win-win for the state. Assembly Bill 126 is an omnibus measure that requires various provisions governing Nevada business entities, among other things. The bill authorizes certain business entities to correct an erroneously filed record with the Office of the Secretary of State, clarifies the content of the affidavit required to be submitted with a demand to inspect certain private corporate records, authorizes a publicly traded corporation with approval of certain stockholders to decrease the number of issued and outstanding shares to a class or series, revises provisions governing permissible restrictions on the transfer of shares by a corporation by clarifying the manner in which the transferee may be presumed to have knowledge of the restriction, and repeals, reenacts, and reorganizes the definition of advance notice statement and statement of intent for purposes of certain provisions relating to dissenters' rights. This is a good pro-business bill, and I'm happy to have been able to co-sponsor this, and I would urge and that's what it has to do with it.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 126 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 131, introduced by Assemblywoman Cohen, etc., revises provisions governing urban and community forestry. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 10, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 131 creates the Urban and Community Forestry Program within the Division of Forestry of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to promote, create, improve, and maintain urban and community forests in the state. The bill sets forth the duties of the state forester or fire warden to administer the program and authorize them to establish a program to distribute grants for the support and advancement of urban and community forestry.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 131 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 146, introduced by Assemblywoman Marzola, revises provisions governing video service. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 146 clarifies the definition of video service to mean the provision by a video service provider over a video service network of certain multi-channel video programming provided by a video service provider. The revised definition also excludes certain video content, including streaming video content accessed via the internet, direct-to-home satellite service, and any wireless multi-channel programming provided by a commercial mobile service provider. This measure also clarifies the definition of cable service to exclude any video content, including streaming video content accessed by a service that enables users to access content, information, electronic mail, or other services that are offered via the internet regardless of the internet service provider. The effective date of this bill is July 1st, 2023. Thank you, sir.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 146 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly. The following bills are ready to be immediately transmitted to the Assembly. Senate Bills 244 and 282. Once these bills have been transmitted to the Assembly, the Senate no longer has the ability to take any further action. Are there any objections or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Assembly Bill 154, introduced by Assemblywoman Peters and Senator Krasner, provides for the regulation of the living donation of birth tissue. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5 under subsection 2 under bill.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 154 requires the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of the Department of Health and Human Services to publish on an internet website a list of entities that accept living donations of birth tissue in a hospital or birthing center. Such entities must show proof of accreditation by the American Association of Tissue Banks to be placed and remain on such list. The bill also requires hospitals and certain physicians to provide a patient who is pregnant with a link to that internet website or a printed version of that list.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 154 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 162, introduced by Assemblywoman Gorlo, et cetera, establishes provisions governing the use of neonicotinoid pesticides. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 12 under subsection 2 under bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 162 lists permissible uses of neonicotinoid pesticides, prohibits the purchase or use of these pesticides on plants not grown for commercial agricultural purposes, and limits the use of neonicotinoid pesticides to those who possess a certificate of commercial agricultural use from the State Department of Agriculture. This bill will help save bees.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm all about saving bees. Unfortunately, I have to rise in opposition to AB 162 as it prevents certified licensed applicators, restricted use applicators, from using a pesticide that's not even listed by the EPA. It's over the counter in most states. With the passage of this bill, again, a restricted use applicator cannot apply it, can't use it. Clearly with their licensing, they should be able to. Although I am sympathetic to the backyard gardener, maybe is misusing it. In this case, certified applicators cannot, and clearly that's an overreach. I urge your opposition.
Senator Hammond.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a speech. I will be a yes.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill may not be perfect, but I am a yes also. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 17, the noes are 3. AB 162 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 164, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, revises provisions related to outdoor recreation. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2 into subsection 4 into bill.
Senator Hammond.
We are 164, right? Assembly Bill 164 requires the Division of Outdoor Recreation of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to establish an outdoor education advisory working group during the 2023-24 interim to study approaches to incorporate outdoor recreation into public education curriculum. It eliminates the advisory committee established by division and instead requires the advisory board on outdoor recreation to serve as a technical advisory committee. Thank you very much.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 17, the noes are 3. AB 164 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 189, introduced by Assemblyman Howdigy, revises provisions governing construction start times in certain counties and cities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval into bill.
Senator Daly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 189 provides that if a Board of County Commissioners, any counties whose population is 700,000 or more, currently Clark County, or the governing body of a city which is located in such a county adopts an ordinance restricting the hours in which construction work may begin in a common interest community in which the original developer controls a majority of the units, the hours of construction work in such a community must be allowed to begin at, but not earlier than 5 a.m. during the period beginning on April 1 and ending on September 30th. The governing body of a county or city to which these provisions apply must amend any ordinance not in compliance with these provisions as of the effective date of this measure. Any existing ordinance regulating excessive noise is also subject to these provisions.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 19. There is 1 no. AB 189 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 210, introduced by Assemblywoman Duran, etc., revises provisions governing public works. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7 and subsection 2 into bill.
Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 210 requires each contractor engaged on a public work to provide his or her workers with a written or electronic notice that sets forth the internet website of the Labor Commissioner, where the prevailing wage rates for public works projects are posted, the name of the contractor, and the physical address of the principal place of business of the contractor. Finally, the bill also requires a person who has willfully and repeatedly failed to pay a worker to pay damages in an amount equal to the difference between the wages required to be paid and the wages that were actually paid by the employer to the affected worker. Thank you.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 19. The noes are 1. AB 210 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 214, introduced by Assemblywoman Anderson and Senator Daly, revises provisions governing certain regional transportation commissions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 8 into Section 8 into bill.
Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 214 requires a Regional Transportation Commission, or RTC, in a county whose population is 100,000 or more to establish an advisory committee to provide certain information and advice to the RTC relating to public mass transit transportation in the county. The bill also makes various changes to the memberships of such an advisory committee, including those that already exist in counties whose population is 700,000 or more, currently Clark County. Among other changes, the RTC must appoint members of the advisory committee. Of at least 2 must be employees of the person who contracts with the commission to operate the public mass transit system. The bill further requires RTC or any person who contracts with the RTC to operate public transit system to maintain any audio-video recording that is used as evidence in a certain disciplinary action and contains an incident on a public transit system that results in an injury to an employee. Upon request of the employee organization that is the exclusive bargaining unit of the employees of a person who contracts with the RTC, the audio and video recording must be provided to the employee organization. Finally, 214 allows RTCs to establish fines for passengers who refuse to comply with a regional or statewide health and safety standard or mandate effective October 1, 23.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 18, the noes are 2. AB 214 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 225, introduced by Assemblywoman Newby, revises provisions concerning the confidentiality of personal information of certain persons. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 30, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 225 sets forth a process for a person who is not otherwise authorized under existing state law or otherwise not a representative of a governmental agency for whom such a person is an employee to petition the district court to make the personal information of that person contained in the records of the county recorder, county assessor, county clerk, city clerk, or the Secretary of State confidential. If the petition meets certain criteria and is granted by the district court, such order of the court expires after 5 years, but may be extended in subsequent 5-year increments. Finally, Assembly Bill 225 makes the list of persons who are authorized to request such a court order consistent for the records of the county recorder, county assessor, county clerk, city clerk, or the Secretary of State.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 225 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 227, introduced by Assemblywoman Cohen, revises provisions relating to domestic relations. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 19 and subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, President. Assembly Bill 227 creates summary procedures for an annulment and for child custody under certain circumstances. Assembly Bill 227 provides that a marriage may be dissolved by the summary procedure for annulment when certain factors are present and both spouses agree to the summary procedure. Additionally, an action to determine custody of a child may be brought by this summary procedure when the parents or legal guardians of a child have reached a detailed agreement on the custody, medical, or other care, education, maintenance, and support of the child, and the court determines that using the summary procedure is in the best interest of the child.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 227 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 235, introduced by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, revises provisions governing public works projects. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7 and subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Daly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 235 requires the payment of prevailing wage to workers who perform custom fabrication on a public works or for certain performance contracts of local governments or state agencies. This bill is effective on passage and approval for the purposes of adopting regulations and performing any other preparatory administrative task, and on January 1, 2024 for all other purposes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Golkachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 235. This bill requires that any custom project that is ordered off the job site, on a site off the job site, it requires then that prevailing wage be paid to that employee. Clearly, it presents a problem if you went to a shop and that shop was in California. How do you track who pays the prevailing wage? Or worse yet, if you ordered the project overseas, there's no way to track that and pay prevailing wage. It'll be a bookkeeping nightmare. Again, prevailing wage on the job we live with, but when you start ordering it off the job site in a shop that could be 500 miles away, clearly an overreach. Please vote no.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just echo the comments of our colleague from Eureka. I am a strong proponent, actually, of prevailing wage, but in this case, it's just entirely impractical. For those of us that are in the trades, these are often called prefabrication shops. They're in the bill, they're listed as custom work. But because these shops often are doing projects for numerous other projects that may not be prevailing wage at the same time, it just creates a logistical and paperwork nightmare. So while I do support prevailing wage, in this case, it's not practical to try to apply this, not only for the examples that our colleague from Eureka mentioned, but also from the fact that even the local shops are often doing work for numerous projects at the same time, and maybe only one of those may be a prevailing wage project. Just really a nightmare, logistically speaking. So I urge you to vote no on AB 235. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 12, the noes are 8. AB 235 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 251, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing prescriptions to the people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. End of bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 251 removes the requirement for the State Board of Pharmacy to adopt regulations prescribing every language in which certain information about a prescription is required to be provided based on demographic trends and projections, and instead requires each pharmacy to provide such information in any of the 10 languages most commonly spoken at home in this state as determined by the most recent decennial census. The measure authorizes a pharmacy to provide the specific directions for use given by the prescribing practitioner in English and the other language in a separate document if it is impractical to include that information on the label or other device affixed to the container of the prescription in English only.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very well-intentioned bill, colleagues, but the problem is it's not fully cooked. Nevada is a melting pot, as you know, with over 150 languages spoken here. This bill is tailored to one software company that accommodates such translations. If you look at a prescription blank, you'll see there's an area called a SIG, and that is where the provider writes the directions of the prescription for the patient to understand how to take the medication. This bill expands the standards of practice of pharmacists and pharmacies by requiring a pharmacist have translated an English SIG, or directions, into another language. So basically, a pharmacist has 3 responsibilities. He ensures that the label on the vial has the accurate directions written by the doctor on the prescription. I don't have a problem with this having a flag document. If there's too much information, it can't be fit on the label. That's not a problem. Then the pharmacist has to fill the contents with the right medication and the right strength of that medication. And then by Nevada state law, for a new prescription, a pharmacist must do a patient consultation to give that patient the warnings that could occur in the event that the patient took the medication. And a pharmacist can be disciplined by the State Board of Pharmacy if they do not give a patient a consultation, and a pharmacist can be civilly liable for damages if the pharmacist does not consult with that patient that results in injury or death of the patient. The author of this bill has opined that the software company doing the translations can only translate the SIG or directions and cannot translate the oral or written warnings affixed to the bottles. I'm sure many of you have gotten a bottle that says, do not drink, do not take with alcohol, do not operate with dangerous machinery, avoid prolonged sunlight, don't take with aspirin, etc. Hence, the pharmacist is not able to communicate these warnings that the law may cause in conflict with pharmacy law. And here, I'll give you just a couple of examples. A doctor may prescribe an antidepressant class of drugs called monoamine oxidase inhibitors. It's imperative that the pharmacist warn a patient through having a personal consultation to not take any cold medicines that have decongestants like Sudafed or phenylpropanolamine or ephedrine that can cause a hypertensive crisis and immediate death. How can a pharmacist warn a patient of this if they don't speak the language? What if the patient is prescribed a powerful narcotic like OxyContin? The pharmacist must tell the patient that this drug can cause severe drowsiness, don't drink alcohol, don't drive your car. How can a pharmacist engage in such communications of these warnings if they don't speak the language? What if that patient, maybe they have severe pain, they've had a couple of beers going to the pharmacy to negate the pain, they drink, and then they take not one, but two of the OxyContins because they think if one will do the job, two will do it better, and they get in a car and they cause a horrific accident. Who will be liable? I can guarantee you the trial attorneys will find that the pharmacist and the pharmacy and maybe even the physician that may not have even been aware of that translation would be held accountable. We learned early in pharmacy that decimals kill. In our profession, especially when dealing with toxic drugs like drug thinners, various narcotics, and heart medications. In its present form, if this bill becomes law, many pharmacists could be sued and pharmacies sued for not providing warnings in the language that the patient understands. You see, the pharmacist cannot use the excuse that he or she did not speak the language since the label was translated for that same patient. Again, a higher quality of care. This scenario will become a trial attorney's dream scenario, suing a deep-pocket pharmacy chain or break a pharmacist financially for not providing a mandatory patient consultation in line with this expansion of the standard of practice of pharmacy. If this does pass into law, I predict that chain stores will just refuse to fill such prescriptions because of liability and legal issues. Lastly, it also may affect prescribers that are not required by this bill to be alerted that a third party will be translating their prescriptions, their directions or SIGs for their patients because of the uncertainty of who has the liability if the translation is wrong and harms the patient. While I support better communications for our languages spoke in Nevada, I'm not willing to sacrifice safety to get there. We're talking about people living or dying without these warnings. The easy solution is for this lone software company to allow pharmacist warnings on their labels and thus enhancing the software marketability. For those reasons, I urge a no vote.
Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of AB 251. Many of you know that I live with my father. He is a Vietnamese refugee. He's an immigrant. He came here after serving alongside Americans and fighting in the Vietnamese War for 10 years of his life. And when he came here as a refugee, when the Americans pulled out, he spoke very limited English. He came here at age of 30 and tried to live that American dream. And why this bill is so important to people like me and people that have immigrant parents is even though he has lived the American dream and made a better future for his daughters, including myself, reading things in his native language is important. My Senate colleague talked about how this was important to get the right information to individuals seeking prescriptions. And I will tell you who is doing that now. I did it all growing up, and it was a child. It was children of immigrants that are reading prescription labels to their parents. And are children in the best position to be reading those prescription drugs and those warning labels to their parents? Probably not. And so is this bill perfect? Probably not. Does it need improvement? Yes. But I think this is a right step in that right direction to make sure that we are getting information from our trained pharmacists. We are getting information from our trained doctors. We are getting information from our trained nurses. And we are not getting it from children that are reading those prescription labels to their parents to make sure that they are getting the right information and getting those right information. So I would urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this bill.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill, and I just want to reiterate what we said during committee. And with respect to legal exposure, not having any of the label written in the language that someone can understand. To my colleague's point in Senate District 20, right now there would be two reasons for them to have legal exposure. But at least with this bill, they have the instructions in the language that they can understand. The second thing that I would say is that we had testimony from those in the retail pharmacy associations that they already have access to telephone assistance right now, so that if there is something on the warning label that would be dangerous and maybe they can't communicate with the patient, they're already doing that. And so what this bill really does is, to my other colleague's point, what it really does is it means that children will not have the burden, if you will, of trying to translate something to the parent. And so the major pharmacists and pharmacies already do this, and what this does is it puts another provision in place for safety. And we went through that during our committee meeting, and I just needed to make sure that everyone understood the language that we're talking about here is the language of the directions. On the bottle now, don't drive, don't drink, all of that right now is in English. And so are the directions. And so at least with this bill, let me say this again, at least with this bill, you have the directions in a language that someone can understand. So I would encourage my colleagues to vote yes, and it's not about some type of computer association or program. It's not about that at all. If we're really concerned about patient safety, we vote yes. Thank you.
Any further remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open a roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13, the noes are 7. AB 251 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 264, introduced by Assemblywoman Taylor, et cetera, revises provisions governing attendance in public schools. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 9 into subsection 2 under bill.
Senator Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 264 makes various changes related to school absences due to the observance of religious holidays. In the case of such absences, pupils shall not be deprived of any award or award eligibility that is based on perfect attendance. School districts shall not count them towards certain reported absences for accountability, and they shall not impact annual accountability reports. A parent or legal guardian must provide notification in writing at least 3 days prior to the absence, and not more than 5 absences shall be approved. Finally, days on which a pupil is absent due to the observance of a religious holiday must be credited toward required days of attendance if the absence was approved and if certain coursework requirements were completed. The bill is effective upon passage and approval for the purposes of adopting regulations and performing preparatory administrative tasks on or before or on July 1st, 2024 for all other purposes. Thank you.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 264 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 282, introduced by Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, etc., establishes provisions governing a subsidy for certain substitute teachers. People of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 282 requires school districts to provide a monthly subsidy to full-time substitute teachers for the purchase of health insurance. In order to receive the subsidies, such teachers must provide proof of health insurance coverage. The bill prohibits a school district or public school from taking certain actions that would prevent a substitute teacher from qualifying for the subsidy.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 16, the noes are 4. AB 282 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 289, introduced by Assembly...
Excuse me.
Senator Lang.
Mr. President, can we have a 1-minute recess?
We are in recess. The Senate is back in order. We are on AB 289.
Assembly Bill 289, introduced by Assemblyman Carter, etc., and Senator Pizzina, enacts provisions relating to the natural organic reduction of human remains. People of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 10 and subsection 2, end of bill. This bill requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 289 authorizes the use of natural organic reduction for disposing human remains, which is the contained accelerated conversion of human remains to soil. The Nevada Funeral and Cemetery Services Board may adopt regulations governing natural organic reduction. The bill includes natural organic reduction in the definition of cremation, thereby applying existing penalty provision for violating requirements governing the disposition of human remains in the licensing, permitting, and certification of operators and facilities for the disposition of human remains. Upon written consent from the Board of County Commissioners of the county or the governing body of the city or town as applicable, the board may license crematories using only natural organic reduction located within certain cities and towns. Finally, the bill exempts soil resulting from natural organic reduction from the size requirements for cremated remains and makes several other conforming changes. This bill becomes effective upon passage and approval for purposes of adopting any regulations and performing any preparatory administrative tasks and on or January 1st of 2024. Mr. President, I do have an additional remark on Assembly Bill 289. As we were hearing this bill, and the mention was organic reduction, and that we're able to this now becomes part of the soil. So with that in mind, many of you may have attended the Elko Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada in January. And a particular poem I heard there in 2007 came to mind when we heard this bill. And it's a bill by William McRae, and if you've never heard him before, you need to. He wrote this poem about reincarnation. Reincarnation by Wallace McKay. What is reincarnation? A cowboy asked his friend. It starts, his old pal told him, when your life comes to an end. They wash your neck and comb your hair and clean your fingernails and put you in a padded box away from life's travails. The box in you goes in a hole that's been dug in the ground. Reincarnation starts when you're planted neath that mound. Them clouds melt down just like the box and you who is inside. And that's when you begin your transformation ride. And in a while, the grass will grow upon your rendered mound until someday, upon that spot, a lonely flower is found. And then a horse may wander by, graze upon that flower that once was you, and now has become your vegetated bower. Now, the flower that horse done eat, along with his other feed, makes bone and fat and muscle essential to the steed. But there's a part that he can't use, and so it passes through, and there it lies upon the ground, this thing that once was you. And if perchance I should pass by and see this on the ground, I'll stop a while and ponder at this object that I've found. I'll think about reincarnation and life and death and such, and come away concluding why you ain't changed all that much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 19, the noes are 1. AB 289 has received a 2/3 majority as the Constitution declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 298, introduced by Assemblywoman Howdigi, revises provisions governing housing. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5 into subsection 4 under bill.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 298 requires a landlord who collects any fee from a prospective tenant who applies to rent a dwelling unit to refund the fee if that landlord rents the dwelling unit to a different prospective tenant and does not conduct the activity for which the fee was collected. Additionally, the measure requires a written rental agreement to contain a separate appendix containing certain information regarding fees and the rights of the tenant. In addition, a landlord is prohibited from collecting an application fee to obtain a credit report or background check for a minor who is a member of the household of the prospective tenant. Further, the bill provides that during the period beginning July 1, 2023, and ending on December 31st, 2024, a landlord must not renew a rental agreement or enter into a new rental agreement for a dwelling unit with the existing tenant that increases the rent payable in an amount that is more than 10% of the rent payable by the existing tenant that is in effect on June 30th, 2023. Provisions relating to temporarily prohibiting a landlord from increasing the rent due by a tenant is effective on July 1, 2023, and expires by limitation on December 31st, 2024. All other provisions are effective on and October 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to AB 298, although I like a lot of provisions in this bill, especially when it comes to application fees, which I think have been abused by some landlords in Nevada, especially in the past year or two. The provision that you can't charge for an application fee for a minor only makes sense, and charging multiple people for an application fee before you even run a credit on somebody just to make a revenue source of application fees, that should be frowned upon, and I applaud the author for the transparency in identifying those fees that are should not be charged and shall not be charged if they were to pass into law. My concern, of course, is the rent control. And albeit that it's only for a year, I think once we crack that dam open, we are going to see this just to be extended. And it's my belief that rent control is not going to provide more affordable housing. It's going to provide less affordable housing. You just need to look at San Francisco, Santa Monica, California, that have enacted such rent control ordinances. They don't work. You're going to get decreased investment. And for those reasons, I stand opposed to AB 298 and urge another vote.
Any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 12, the noes are 8. AB 298 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 311, introduced by Assemblywoman Bilberry Axelrod, etc., revises provisions governing health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 8, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I promise I'll be brief. Assembly Bill 311 authorizes a hospital to enter into an agreement with the Armed Forces of the United States, allowing unlicensed federal medical providers and surgical technologists to provide care in the hospital if they are operating in their official capacity and within the scope of practice authorized by the federal government and part of a training or educational program. The bill exempts such providers from licensure and regulation requirements of certain health professionals in Nevada. This becomes effective upon passage and approval. Thank you.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 311 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 318, introduced by Assemblyman Nguyen, etc., and Senators Doñate and Pazina, revises provisions governing certain providers of health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7 under subsection 2 and a bill.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 318 revises certain procedures the Board of Medical Examiners must follow to provide notice to a holder of a license to practice medicine that his or her license is scheduled to expire. The measure also requires a physician assistant, a practitioner of respiratory care, a perfusionist, or an insurer of such a person to report to the board any actions for malpractice, claim for malpractice that is submitted in arbitration or mediation, settlement, award judgment, or other disposition of such an action or claim, and certain sanctions imposed that are reportable to the National Practitioner Data Bank. The board may impose an administrative penalty against such a person that fails to report the required information after receiving a report that a judgment has been rendered or that an action or a claim has been resolved by the settlement. The board must conduct an investigation to determine whether to impose disciplinary action unless an investigation has already commenced or been completed. The board may require a physician, assistant, practitioner of respiratory care, or perfusionist to undergo certain examinations to determine his or her fitness to practice under these circumstances. Finally, the board must impose a fine of not to exceed $10,000 for each violation committed by a person that constitutes grounds for disciplinary action. All money from the penalties must be credited to the account with the state treasurer to be used to support the improvement of health care or the practice of medicine in the state. This bill is effective upon passage and approval for purposes of adopting regulations and performing any preparatory administrative tasks on or before January 2024 for all other purposes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 318 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 333, introduced by Assemblywoman Duran, revises provisions governing housing authorities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 4 into Section 4 into bill.
Senator Daly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 333 requires each housing authority in Nevada to conduct an inspection on a regular basis as required by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development of each dwelling unit owned or managed by the housing authority and dwelling units leased pursuant to certain federal law. After performing such an inspection, the housing authority must obtain the handwritten or electronic signature of the tenant to confirm that the inspection was conducted. The housing authority or the housing authority in coordination with the private owner as applicable shall ensure that all necessary repairs are made as soon as practical after the inspection so that the dwelling unit is in a decent, safe, and sanitary condition. The bill is effective October 1st, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? You're yeah. Okay, there you go. Thank you. All right. Everything looks good. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 333 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 359, introduced by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, etc., revises provisions relating to the imposition by certain counties of additional taxes on fuels for motor vehicles. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 to Section 1.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 359 authorizes the continued imposition of annual increases in taxes on certain motor vehicle fuels in a county whose population is 700,000 or more if the Board of County Commissioners, on or before December 31, 2026, adopts an ordinance authorizing the effectuation of such increases. If the Board of County Commissioners does not adopt such an ordinance on or before that date, the Board is prohibited from imposing any additional annual increases on those taxes. Bills effective upon passage and approval.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2 of this act becomes effective upon passage and approval and a bill.
Senator Daley, did you wish to say something? Okay, any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 15, the noes are 5. AB 359 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 361, introduced by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, etc., revises provisions related to state financial administration. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023, and a bill.
Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asleep at the switch here, I guess. Assembly Bill 361 provides that if a department, institution, or agency of the executive branch of the state government is required to request approval from IFC to accept a grant from the federal government, revise a work program, or implement a grant, then the entity may, upon submission of an application for the grant, request that the IFC grant a provisional approval to accept the grant, revise the work program with the IFC unless the actual amount of the grant or change to the work order exceeds the greater of the amount previously approved by IFC plus 10%, the amount provisionally approved by the IFC plus $75,000. Finally, the bill authorizes the IFC to consider such requests during a regular or special session of the legislature. Bill effective July 1st, 2023.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 361 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 366, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions governing the Keep Nevada Working Task Force. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 12, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 361. Assembly Bill 361 provides that if... That's the same one.
We're on AB 366.
I'm sorry. I don't have 366.
Senator Daley.
I didn't have it either, but now I do. Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 366 moves the Keep Nevada Working Task Force from the Office of the Lieutenant Governor to the Office of the Secretary of State and revises the membership of the task force. Bill becomes effective July 1st, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 20, the noes are 0. AB 366 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 407, introduced by Assemblyman Carter, revises provisions governing the release of personal information by the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. People of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 407 prohibits the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles from releasing any personal information for any purpose relating to the enforcement of immigration laws unless the subject of the information provides written consent or the Director receives an order, subpoena, or warrant issued by a court. When responding to such an order, subpoena, or warrant, the Director must not release personal information beyond what is specifically required in order to comply. This bill is effective on July 1, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to AB 407. I think it's very ironic that we as a legislative body are going to be telling a government agency not to cooperate in the enforcement of law. It just doesn't make any sense. I've been watching this since the 2013 session when I also voted against something very similar. I think that our responsibility as legislators passing laws is to try to ensure compliance, whether it's at the federal, state, or local level. So I would urge my colleagues to vote no on AB 407.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 12, the noes are 8. AB 407 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly. The following bills are ready to be immediately transmitted to the Assembly. Assembly Bills 164, 210, 214, and 366. Once these bills have been transmitted to the Assembly, the Senate no longer has the ability to take any further action. Are there any objections or comments? Okay, we'll continue on.
That concludes Order Business 13 on the first agenda.
Okay, Order Business 16, remarks on the floor, introduction of guests. Seeing none, we will go to the second agenda. We're on Order Business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 501, introduced by Finance, establishes for the 2023-2025 biennium the subsidies to be paid to the Public Employees Benefits Program for insurance for certain active and retired public officers and employees. The people of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
SB 501 is ordered to the general file.
Senate Bill 503, introduced by Finance, ensures sufficient funding for K-12 public education for the 2023-2025 biennium. The people of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
SB 503 is ordered to the general file.
Senate Bill 504, introduced by Finance, authorizes expenditures by agencies of the state government for the 2023-2025 biennium. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
SB 504 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 22, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, revises provisions governing the issuance of cease and desist orders for unlicensed activity by the State Contractors Board. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 706, proposed by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Spearman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate adopt Amendment 706 to Assembly Bill 22.
You've heard the motion, Senator Spearman.
Amendment 706 to Assembly Bill 22 does the following. Provides that the State Contractors Board may take one or all of the disciplinary actions provided in Section 1 to address a second or subsequent violation or for any first violation involving theft or fraud after issuing a cease and desist order.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 22 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 55, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary, revises provisions related to unclaimed property of the people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 565, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of Amendment 565.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Scheibel.
I move to adopt Amendment 565 to Assembly Bill 55.
You've heard the motion, Senator Scheibel.
Amendment 565 revises from the second to the first renewal of a time deposit that is automatically renewable, the point at which certain time deposits may be presumed abandoned, and requires annual publication of a notice concerning abandoned property in any county with a population of less than 700,000 and sets forth guidelines for the contents of such a notice.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 55 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 74, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Education, revises provisions relating to higher education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 558, proposed by the Senate Committee on Education.
Senator Lang.
Mr. President, I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Lang.
I move the Senate adopt Amendment 558 to Assembly Bill 74.
You've heard the motion, Senator Lang.
Amendment 558 to Assembly Bill 74 defines and prescribes requirements for the development of facilities using public-private partnership, including authorizing a public body to enter into such partnership to plan, finance, design, construct, improve, maintain, operate, or acquire a facility.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none of those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 74 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and in the general file.
Assembly Bill 415, introduced by Assemblywoman Taylor, revises provisions relating to dispensing opticians. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 554, proposed by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt Amendment number 554 to Assembly Bill 415.
You've heard the motion, Senator Spearman.
Amendment 554 to Assembly Bill 415 does the following. Revises the definition of ophthalmic dispensing and dispensing optician. Amends provisions permitting the board to accept monetary grants, donations, and contributions from any source for collective board benefit to aid in implementing the Dispensing Opticians Practice Act. Deletes Section 23, which contained provisions about the confidentiality of specific board-held information. It deletes provisions which mandated the board to cooperate with other licensing boards or agencies, including law enforcement, in investigations concerning licensed individuals. Deletes provisions which would have made disciplinary orders and certain supporting information from the board public records. Amends provisions to redefine what actions count as unprofessional conduct.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 415 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and in the general file.
Assembly Bill 432, introduced by Assemblyman Koenig, revises provisions governing optometry. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 572, proposed by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Spearman.
Move that the Senate adopt Amendment 572 to Assembly Bill 432.
You've heard the motion. Senator Spearman.
Amendment 572 to Assembly Bill 432 does the following. Provides that certain provisions do not exempt a person from the requirements to obtain a license to practice optometry in the state before engaging in such practice, and authorizes the board to impose a maximum fine of $1,000 for violations of the Optometry Practice Act, with citation appeals to be conducted as per Chapter 622A of the Nevada Revised Statutes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 432 as amended is ordered reprinted and engrossed into the general file.
Assembly Bill 442, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, revises provisions relating to persons licensed by the Board of Medical Examiners. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 552, proposed by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered.
I move that the Senate adopt Amendment 552 to Assembly Bill 442.
You've heard the motion. Senator Spearman.
Amendment 552 to Assembly Bill 442 does the following. Deletes sections 1 through 3.5 of the bill. Adds provisions amending Chapter 629 of Nevada Revised Statutes to require a healthcare licensing board to act in response to complaints alleging that a licensed individual has committed acts of domestic violence or sexual assault. Adds new provisions to require each healthcare licensing board to establish regulations specifying situations where the board must summarily suspend a licensee's license in response to a complaint or series of complaints. It requires a joint interim standing committee on commerce and labor during 2023-2024 interim to form a working group tasked with studying issues related to information sharing between law enforcement and certain professional or occupational licensing boards about licensees under investigation for alleged acts of sexual assault or domestic violence.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. AB 442 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
That concludes Order of Business 12 on the second agenda.
Order of Business 4, reports of committees.
Order of business number 9, please, Mr. President.
Okay, we're going to go to Order of Business 9. Senator Dondero Luke.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would move to refer Assembly Bill 442 to the Committee on Finance.
You've heard the referral. If there is no objections, so ordered. We are now on Order of Business 4.
Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Assembly Bill number 193, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. End of reports.
Okay, Order of Business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until the call of the chair.
You've heard the motion, although that's just, we're going into recess. All right.